Welcome everyone. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a slimline Christmas card. For today's project, here are some of the dies that we're going to use. First off, we have a new 2D Design slimline die. They have come out with a new line of these particular slimline. This is one of them, and it is a scalloped edge with some stitching. They also have a plain rectangular die that I have here, and as you can see, it does have stitching all the way around. And I really wanted to set this off with the scallop die behind, just because it also will incorporate some of the stitching on both items. Next, I have this beautiful joy die, and this is a floral die. As you can see, it's got a lot of detail. Again, that's from 2D Design. And here I have a Creatables from Marianne Designs. And this particular poinsettia has a lot of detail. It has mostly embossing detail, but it's absolutely beautiful. I want this on my card to make it stand out. So let's go ahead and get started. First, let's go over my paper choices. This particular print or this particular pack that I have here comes from Echo Park. This is Here Comes Santa Claus, and this is a whole entire set. It does have stickers and different two-sided cardstock. And one of the reasons that I chose to use this particular set was because I'm not having any imagery or stamped images on my card. So this is going to bring that element. So the first of the paper selection that I have is this one from Echo Park. This is a holly on a black background, which really does fit my theme a little bit more than the backside. If I'm picking a pattern that's double-sided prints on both sides, I usually try to pick the one that I like the most to utilize versus the other one. I'm not going to show that. So, I just want to make sure that it's something that's my own preference. Next, I have this beautiful print. This is from Doodlebug. This is the Petite Prints, gingham and linen in a green. So that is going to add a little bit of detail. I also have some red cardstock, and I like keeping my scraps because I can always use them for something else. I have an apple green cardstock, again, another scrap. And here I have some PVC paper. It's not glitter paper. What it is it has a coating of plastic over the whole entire glitter, but more or less it's a metallic shimmer type deal here, I guess. But that's what I'm going to use for today's card, just to bring a little bit of bling. And the thing I like about that is that it doesn't shed. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, I am going to start by cutting the background for the whole entire card. This is the scalloped edged slimline by 2D, and this is the one that has the stitched edging on it as well. I'm just going to tape that down onto the petite print and pass that through my machine. Let's go ahead and have a look. I did pass this through the machine twice. Just because of the length of it, I wanted to make sure I got a good cut. Here I have my die cut with all the detailing. I absolutely love it. Now from the straight line rectangle, I'm going to select this size to be able to fit onto the backing there. I'm going to use the holly paper in order to die cut this. I love the print, and this is going to add a nice background to my font. So let's go ahead and get this set and cut. Let's go ahead and have a closer look at this cut. And as you can see, I have a beautiful stitched border and a very simple rectangular cut. I'm going to now be moving on to my joy die. And this particular die, because this is PVC paper, I want to make sure that I pass this through several times. Usually what I'll do is you can probably cut this down so that it fits evenly on the mat or by letter, so that way you can rotate them. It's up to you if you do want to add some washi tape. I typically tend not to, and sometimes that is to my detriment, but it's always nice to be able to have the choice. Okay, so after several passes that I had here, I went through and pulled out my joy, and you can see that they pop out nice. And this is a little bit trickier with this particular paper. Again, it's easier with standard paper because of that plastic coating that it does have. That's why I passed it through the machine several times. But it's still, this die cut is really very beautiful. It has so much detail in the cut itself. So let's go ahead and get the other items ready. So now for the final cuts, we have the poinsettia set. And for this particular set, I'm going to run through and cut 2 of the larger poinsettias and 3 of the smaller. For each time that I cut out the poinsettia leaves or the flowers, I'm going to go ahead and pass them through with the embossing pad as well before I remove them from the die. Doing this will allow me to get a very good impression on the poinsettia and the leaves of the details that's actually on the die. Let's go ahead and have a closer look at these. You'll see that it has the pattern from the die, and look at how beautiful that looks. All that's left now are the leaves for the poinsettias. I'm going to cut 2 sets of each of these leaves. And once I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and pass this through with the embossing pad. On the inside of my card base, I'm going to be stamping using Versaclear Fine because I do want to heat emboss it. I'm going to be using the A Creature with Stirring stamp set from Lawn Fawn in order to obtain the sentiment that they have there. And it says, "Have a joyful Christmas." So I've got that set up. I'm just going to go ahead and stamp that right onto my card. Now, I know I said I was going to emboss it, but I'm considering not actually doing that and just having it more as a black background. Once you start stamping, just make sure that you center up your sentiment in the middle of your card. Be careful so that way you make sure that it's nice and straight. I'm going to go ahead and set down my backing onto my card base. I'm going to use some liquid glue and adhere that down just because it does give me a little bit of wiggle room. This is a fairly large card and this will make it just a little bit easier. Hey crafty friends, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and tap on the little bell for future notifications of new videos. I'm just going to place this down on my card base, line it up, and press down. We should be good to go to add on our other items. Here I'm using foam tape in order to mount my holly piece. Now, I almost forgot to mention, I'm going to go ahead and put all the items that I'm using for today's project down in the description below. So go ahead and check that out whenever you have a chance. Here's a little tip that I like to use when I'm using double-sided tape or foam tape. I'll expose opposite ends of the strips before pulling off and then place down my item just where I want it. It gives me a little bit of a buffer to be able to move and slide my items wherever I need them to be. Then I'll press down on those exposed areas and set my item in place. Okay, so I'm going to be working on my joy sentiment. I want to lay these out and give myself an idea of where I'm going to place them. Because of how thin the fonts are, I'm going to lay these down with glue. Unless you have a sheet of double-sided tape, then that would be one way to do this. But because of the PVC paper, it would end up being a little bit too thick and probably wouldn't cut through. I've tried this before and it did give me a little bit of problem with glitter paper. So it probably wouldn't be the best thing to use. That's why I'm using liquid glue. Once I have the J and the Y in place, it'll be a little bit easier to space out that O and make sure that it's kind of even in between both letters. So that's why it is the last letter that I'm going to adhere down. And one of the things I like about using liquid glue is the fact that it does give you a little bit of leeway and a little bit of wiggle room to make sure everything is centered and placed where you need it. We're now down to the poinsettias. This is one of my favorite parts of card creating, which is forming paper flowers. Now, in order to create a little bit of dimension for this, I am going to use a paintbrush. You can use a dowel as well, or one of those wider toothpicks. I mean, that's up to you, but I like to kind of round out those leaves, and it's easier to use a round tool in order to do this, especially because this does have quite a bit of detail as far as the embossing, and I don't want to ruin that effect. So I'm simply going to roll this right on over the brush and kind of create that curve in the paper. We'll go ahead and repeat this for all of our items. Once we have the petals all rolled out, we can start stacking our flower. In order to stack our pieces, I'm going to add a dab of glue right onto the first flower, and then I will rotate and adhere down the second flower. So that way the petals from the bottom flower will peek through. Now for this, I'm using 2 of the larger and then 1 of the smaller. I'll repeat the process of adding my dab of glue and then alternating. Once my petals are all layered up, I'm going to go ahead and push down that center while I push upwards towards the center with my fingers. That will kind of give a little bit of lift here. And here's what it's going to look like once you have it set down. Next, I'm going to roll the leaves as well. I'm going to use my brush in order to create a bend in the paper. I'll repeat this process with the second leaf. Once I have everything done, then we'll go ahead and start working on setting down our poinsettia. Typically, I would adhere the leaves right onto the back of my flower, but for this particular card, I'm going to set down the poinsettia first. The reason being is that I want to figure out where my layout is going to be for those petals. They're a bit on the smaller side and they won't peek out from behind, so that is one of the reasons as well. I'm working the leaves so that they frame that little joy on each corner. So I'm going to lift up the petals and adhere the leaf directly down onto the card. I want it to peek out quite a bit from under this flower. All right, now I am going to repeat the same process that I did with the larger poinsettia with this smaller one. The only difference between the two are the size of the actual flower. So here I utilized 3 of the smaller cutouts. Please note that once I finish rolling my flowers, setting them up, and then rolling my leaves, I'm going to go ahead and follow the same pattern in the upper right hand corner of the card with the flower. I will go ahead and frame that section with the leaves as well. I decided that this needed just a little bit of bling here, so I'm coming in with some rhinestones into the center of my flower. I love the look of this instead of having the actual stamen that come with it, just because, well, I'm me. I want to have a little bling on my card. I'm also going to utilize some of my smaller ones to add just as little dews on the petals. And then I'm going to add groups of 3s just next to those particular leaves, kind of as if though the dew is just kind of falling off of the flower or that little petal. Now, if you don't have crystals or rhinestones, you can go ahead and use drops, Nuvo drops if you have them. So no worries. All right, let's go ahead and have a closer look at this card. The shine that's coming off of those fonts, and then you have that sparkle from the rhinestones, and look at the lovely detail on these flowers. They're spectacular. I really love this die. Thanks for watching Heartcraftpaper. For more videos and tutorials like these, don't forget to subscribe. Visit the website at www.heartcraftpaper.com.